Hey folks, welcome back again to Straight Talk Whiskey. Thanks for joining us for episode number 6. I'm Nick, and this will be our first of a mini-series on Tullamore DEW Irish whiskey. Now, as you can see behind me, I'm a little bit of a fan of this Irish whiskey. It's always, since I started drinking it, just held a special place. So, with that said, last week we talked about, briefly, what we're going to be reviewing. Now, next week is going to be a Tullamore 10-year single malt, then a 12-year special reserve, then a Tullamore DEW Phoenix, which is a 55% ABV wonderful whiskey, so we'll get to that. And then we will finish with a 12-year Irish whiskey that I recently purchased, and it dates back to the 1950s. So that's going to be a special one, especially for me. You go back and forth with people saying, you have something that old, that vintage, that you should just, keep it closed, keep the cork on, keep the seal intact, and, save it, pass it on to someone, save it for, maybe an auction someday, someone will buy it off you for a crazy price. But, in my opinion, and it totally depends on where your thinking is at, and I'm not here to say, oh, that's bad, or that's good, whatever, but, I like drinking whiskey. There's, certainly a whole mass of people out there that collect whiskey. They're trying to get certain series. Certainly Pappy Van Winkle is a huge one. Jack Daniel's collectors are huge. So, there's a time and place for everything, but for me, I like drinking whiskey. So, if I have a 12-year that's, going on 60-something years, we're going to taste it for you and review it and see what that Tullamore 12-year would have tasted like back then. So that'll be really interesting. Look for that in about a month from now. We should finally get to that one. So let's go in and talk about the Tullamore DEW, the standard bottling that we have in front of us. So Tullamore DEW, where it gets its name, Tullamore, of course, the city in Ireland, and they released and we'll get to this later, the Tullamore DEW Phoenix as sort of a commemoration of the city, just celebration. And it's interesting because William Grant & Sons has recently purchased Tullamore DEW Irish whiskey in 2010 and are currently in the process of building a distillery in Tullamore. So that's really exciting for whiskey fans, especially the people of Tullamore in Ireland. It's a great thing. So we can probably expect them to keep this whiskey pretty much the same because, it's a huge global brand and people want, consistency. But we will probably see more variations of Tullamore because they'll have their own distillery to do it instead of at Middleton Distillery. So, and the Tullamore DEW, the DEW in its name, is actually initials for Daniel Edmund Williams. And he was kind of the one who skyrocketed the brand back in the 19th century. So that's where we get that from. So let's, and I haven't even opened this yet, so we're kind of getting the first crack here. We are. Got a little leak on the side, but we'll pull through alright. Now, Tullamore DEW is interesting because it uses 3 styles of Irish whiskey, or whiskey in general. It uses a grain whiskey, a malt whiskey, and a pot still. And pot still, we're going to get to that later when we do a single pot still. Which is basically just malted and unmalted barley. It gives it this kind of fruity taste to it, a little bit of creamy, and we'll see the malt probably get the most fruit flavor out of that, but definitely the combination of all 3 produces a pretty interesting blend, and one that I've come to enjoy, and just that's my go-to Irish whiskey just for, sipping on just pretty much any day. It doesn't have to be a certain time of season. So yeah, let's go in for the nose. So the first thing I'm getting is that, that malt quality to it. The light fruits, citrusy. I'm getting some green apple, a little bit of honey, some lemon in there. Now for the second pass, there's a slight hint of wood. We didn't talk about this, but the maturation for Tullamore is in American and European oak casks, and they are finished with sherry, some Madeira, wine, Oloroso, sherry, and port. So there's kind of a unique maturation process, which only adds to the quality of this whiskey. A slight spice in there. You can kind of taste that spice going on in there, largely from the grain, but also the other types as well. So let's taste it. Yeah, the first thing I get is just like the nose, the green apple, some honey. There's definitely a little smoke in there from the wood, vanilla, lemon, almost like a little peppery quality in there. Yeah. You gotta love it because there's this initial fruity side to it, like we said with the apples and the lemon, that kind of thing. But then there's also the cask influence with the wood, the vanilla, some of the oak tannins influencing in there. Irish whiskey, she probably said this before with the Jameson we did earlier, is that it's supposed to be aged legally for 3 years, but Tullamore claims, if you were to go on their website or check out some of their videos, they say that it's aged for much longer. Not sure exactly how long that is, but that definitely helps out a little bit because there's a little bit more of a lingering flavor than compared to the Jameson that we had earlier that kind of disappeared quickly, if you remember that review. But this one stays on for a little while, and yeah, lovely. Now this is definitely sort of like the Jameson and the Jack Daniels as well, in the sense that it can be mixed pretty easily with other things. I don't, that's just a personal preference, but it's certainly, and I've seen friends do it, taste, a lot of different things with this whiskey, and like to pair it with, Coke or like soda water, a bunch of different things, cocktails, I'm sure. I'm not too well versed in that area because, like I said, that's just a personal preference. I don't do that. But obviously, if you're watching this, you're interested in whiskey, and I would challenge you, because this is something I ran into. I had a friend who likes whiskey, but he never had Tullamore before. He never really kind of went that route of the Irish whiskeys. He stuck to like the bourbon on the rocks kind of thing, dilute it a little bit. But I said, we went to a bar after work one week and said, hey, why don't you try some Tullamore? And so got him a glass of that and absolutely loved it. It's a great whiskey to, hang about with friends. Like we said before, most whiskeys, this is what it's all about, folks. If you're not drinking it by yourself, it's lovely to have with friends and the camaraderie. And if you see the Tullamore ads, it's always people, joking around. The parting glass in Ireland is pretty big, so you always see those commercials. And just a great reminder of friendship and Sorry, I didn't finish that sentence because I had to get back in there. So with the finish, it's, it goes relatively quick, but, with however many more years than the 3-year legal minimum of maturation, it definitely helps a little bit, but, it does fade off into the distance kind of quick. But that's sort of to be expected from a 40% ABV whiskey. Yep, so in summary, a lot of great fruit flavors. The green apple, as we said, a little caramel comes in over time, and I suspect that's kind of the wood influence there, because I'm still getting the vanilla, getting a little bit of the wood smoke. So, and as we said, the finish is rather abrupt, but not unpleasant. So, let's give our score for this Tullamore standard whiskey. 88 out of 100. And that'll do it for episode number 6 and the first part of our mini-series. I'll be back next week with the 10-year single malt. So, stick around till then. Have a great week. As always, drink responsibly. We'll see you next time. For Straight Talk Whiskey, I'm Nick. Have a good night.